Yeah, that's okay. Here we go. We're recording.
But between Teams, WebEx, and Zoom, it's like
In Zoom, right? Oh man, so I just finished putting this thing together today because let me share the screen. All right, so this is partly an old presentation and mostly a new one now. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
Okay. Make sure that that is big enough here. Current slide. Let's do that. All right, yeah, that's good now. That's nice and the right size. So this is back in the before times. We're starting to call them now. I don't remember what years these were. Back when we did public telescope nights, right out in front of the Cells building, and years ago we used to do it in front of Richardson Hall, which you can kind of see in the background over there. We would get, you know, crowds of groups and, you know, people from the college and whatnot. Particularly in the warmer months, you'd see a lot more folks there. What we're really going to center on today is, you know, the basic telescope types, and centering on, you know, the two commonly used scopes that we have here at NJAG that we use more than anything else are our Schmidt-Cassegrains. NJAG has an 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain. This is an older telescope. This is, I think, from the early 1980s. That's a Super Polaris. No, not a Super Polaris. That was a Super C8 rather. Some like the pre-Halley's Comet era, just before Halley's Comet. And we took that off the forks, and we had bought a Celestron 6/8 SE mount. It works with a 6-inch and the 8-inch, and a dovetail, and we put that on that mount. The other one we don't have, well, we kind of have here, is the Evolution mount. This is the 8 HD. That's the college telescope, but we have an Evolution 9¼ and it's a little bit different than the HD scopes, not just optically, but the hand controllers are different. So I'm not going to cover the college telescopes right now because, frankly, they have these auto align systems that are very buggy, and they lose their calibration very easy, basically, when you roll them out on the bricks. And so it makes the alignment very frustrating, and it makes it, doing it the manual or the old way that we're going to show you today is actually far easier than operating one of these that are supposed to be, you know, it's supposed to be able to align themselves. And I'll show you all that. I broke down all the steps. I took pictures of every step that the telescope makes. And if we have enough time here, I'll go in the next room and go through a mock alignment with my own C8 Evolution. So the basic telescope type. So the most, you know, everyone thinks of a telescope, they almost automatically think of a refractor. You know, it basically consists of an objective lens or lenses up in the front. The light enters through them. The light bends, hence it refracts. It comes down, either comes directly out into an eyepiece, or in most cases hits a diagonal, and the image gets reversed before it hits the eyepiece and eventually enters your eye. So what are the quick pros and cons of this this type of design? It technically has the best performance per inch of aperture. What does that mean? For any given size, it will probably give the best details on planets and other objects, only because it is, you know, it has an unobstructed view. There's no secondary mirror. It's just got lenses in the front and it comes back down. That being said, the glass, and particularly the epichromatic refractors, is very expensive to produce. And so most commonly you don't see them above 5 inches. It starts getting real expensive. 6 inches gets astronomically expensive to produce. So most refractors you see are in the 4-inch or so range, sometimes a little smaller. It'll give one of the best views a 4-inch telescope can give you, but because it has no obstruction, but you're limited by the size of the telescope. The other two common types of telescopes are reflectors. Basically the Newtonian reflector, or this is considered Dobsonian because of the mount, but it's essentially the same optics for all intents and purposes, where the light comes in through the front of the telescope, bounces off the primary mirror in the back, and then comes all the way up back to the front and bounces off a diagonal secondary mirror at 45 degrees to the eyepiece, and it comes straight through in here to your eyes, and you're viewing it in your front of the telescope. So incidentally, this is for visual observation. These are one of my favorite telescopes to view through. Just that's my personal opinion. That's also because they're a little easier to point. Maybe sorry. Sorry, let me try again. So here's the thing. They are the cheapest to produce for given aperture. So you can get the biggest primary mirror for the littlest money spent if you go with a reflector. It's simple design. You will have to collimate them more often. The collimation is aligning the primary and secondary mirrors. I do mine almost every time I observe. That's my own practice. Some people will do it every once in a while when the mirror finally gets really out of alignment. But for me, it's literally a 2-minute job with a laser, and it's done, and I'm on my way. But again, you can get a large telescope for not as much money compared to other optical designs this way. Most of these Dobsonians are push to, some of them are go to. They get big and heavy. That is the other downside. So some of these, the bigger ones, like 12 inches and up, they start making them in trusses where there's no centerpiece of the telescope here. It's not steel, it's these metal tubes, and it has, it reduces the weight, less bending, less, you're making more trips, but it's more portable that way. So this can actually break down. If you, next time I'll put a picture of a truss tube out there so you can see that. And then there's the compound telescope, which would be your Max-Sutov Cassegrains and your Schmidt Cassegrains. The ones that you see here are Schmidt Cassegrains. That's the ones that the club generally uses and gravitates to. SCTs, as an abbreviation for Schmidt Cassegrains, are great in that respect. Is you can pack a lot of aperture into not that much tube. The tubes are much shorter than their Newtonian counterparts. They often are go-to systems. They are probably one of the most portable, given the size of the telescope, especially if they're in this configuration where they can be disconnected by a dovetail, and that mount can break apart into even smaller pieces. So here, the light comes through. It's a spherical mirror. These are parabolic mirrors. It's a little bit different in the optical design. There's a corrector in the front. The light goes through the corrector, bounces off to the primary, goes into the secondary, and from the secondary through the baffle tube, through the diagonal, and into your eye or a camera. What was I going to say? So the focusing mechanism is in the back of the telescope. You're focusing the back mirror. You're not actually using a focus. So the mirror moves back and forth, forward and back, rather to achieve focus, rather than another focusing mechanism. So that's basically how a Schmidt-Cassegrain works. Again, most folks, if you look for, bang for the buck, essentially, as far as how much can I see, what's the one that's most in production is an 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain. The other part about it is, 8 inches is really a good aperture, no matter what size you have. If you are the kind of person that will look at your telescope and say, oh, look at that big heavy thing, I don't want to lift that. Well, the 8-inch is the sweet spot, because it actually breaks the barrier where you can actually start seeing some detail in deep sky objects, and very good planetary detail, but not weigh a lot. After that, you're into, yes, you're going to see more, but you're going to pay a weight penalty every time you move up in aperture. So whether it's this design or this design, just keep that in the back of your head. That yes, bigger shows you more, but do you always want to carry something that large? And that's why one of the reasons why I have more than one telescope, depending on how my back feels from one day to the next, will dictate sometimes what I use. So that's one thing to keep in mind there. So this is my my 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain. It's on a Celestron Evolution mount. So this is basically the same that you can buy new. If you bought it new, it'd have a gray tube or a white tube. This just happens to be a black tube. It doesn't matter the color of the Schmidt-Cassegrain; they're all the same. Some are orange, some are white, some are silver in color. But occasionally, they're all optically pretty much the same. This is the Evolution mount. The Evolution mount is one of the two mounts that we actually have at NJAG as well. This is very similar to the SE mount. It's a little more robust. If you feel like doing any astrophotography or any EAA, the motors have much less backlash in the Evolution mount. That was the main reason why I swapped from the SC to the Evolution when I started doing EAA. It's not that you can't do it with an SC mount. It's just, it's a lot less frustrating. Depending, if you get one, if your SC mount is very tight and it doesn't have any, slack in the motors, that's usually pretty good, but most of them have some slack. The Evolution has none, or very little whatsoever. Also, the other bonus is it's got a lithium-ion battery already built into it, so you don't need a battery pack. The other one needs a battery pack to operate. Alignment-wise, they are identical. It just, when you turn on the hand controller, one will say Evolution, the other one will say Nexstar SE. But other than that, the alignment process is the same. It is no different whatsoever. Any questions?
Yeah, I do have one. Is that a dew heater or dew wrap on there? Or
Oh yeah, this is an AstroZap dew heater in the front here. Yeah, I kind of keep it on, especially if I'm doing any EAA, or if I know I'm going to be out for an extended period of time. Up by me, I live by a lake, so yeah, I'll plug in the dew controller, depending on the humidity level that night.
and that's also something you'd recommend. I mean, that's because that I don't have. Do not have one.
Yeah, a lot of companies make them. AstroZap is one of them. I think the one on my Rasa is the Kendrick, but they're all good. Do Not is another brand. They all kind of do the same thing. They all have the same connectors. They can each go plug into each other's heater control. They're all kind of the same. So
okay, thanks.
Kind of good. Yeah, that's good to have. I also have a dew cap, but it's not pictured here at the moment. But those two things combined, especially if you're going to go you're going to go anywhere, camping or the Adirondacks, right? It becomes a good thing to have. Yes. If you're going to do astronomy for a half hour, you may or may not need it. The dew cap also substitutes as a light shield as well. So you don't want stray light coming in. It's also a big help. That's another piece too. So if you have a neighbor with a street light or something, it's aimed at your house, and then it'll enter into the telescope, that'll stop it. So, and then here from behind, there's the focuser is on the bottom on this telescope. That's only because it's mounted this in this position. If it were a normal dual fork mount, you might see it on the side. That's only because the optical tube is tipped in that direction that you're seeing on that side.
And Mark,
Yeah.
What is the finder scope? Is that a Telrad?
This one, yeah, I have two finders on this one. The one I use the most is the Telrad, and I will go into that. So there's a Telrad and a 9x50 finder. On this size, a 9x50, and this size, a Telrad. And actually, we'll get into that. Why I do all three. If you had to have just one, the Telrad, but three is definitely helpful too. So it's talking about your finder, how to adjust your finders. And this goes for not just your finder 8x50, 9x50 finder scope, but also your Telrad as well. When you initially line up, you want your finders, right, to line up with what's in your eyepiece. So the idea is you find an object a few hundred yards away, a stop sign, somebody's light on their front porch, a street light, top of a telephone pole, something to line your eyepiece up with, right? Your main eyepiece, low power. And then from there, you'll line up your Telrad and or your finder scope to what's in your eyepiece. So you basically get your telescope focused on the object, lock it in, make sure it doesn't move anywhere, make sure it's centered, and then you adjust your finder scope appropriately so it's also lined up. And same with the Telrad. Use the adjustment screws on the Telrad as well to line everything so it's all centered up.
Mark?
Now, did someone say something?
Yeah, it's Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff.
That particular finder scope in the lower right.
Yeah.
Is there an attachment as a diagonal on there or something to bend that thing 90 degrees? Because that can be a little bit cumbersome to use sometimes.
That one, if it's straight through, they make a 9x50 right angle. They make a right angle one. So you would actually change the finder. They have a right angle version.
You got to change the whole scope. They don't make an attachment for that scope. For that.
No, you would change the whole. You would change the scope. Essentially, it would just come off that bracket and you put the right angle one on. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Right. Depending on the height. If the telescope is very tall, the straight one may not matter as much. But if it's shorter, yeah, you want a right angle. You want a right angle. Yeah. Or if you're on an equatorial mount, you might want a right angle more as well because it's going to be in all sorts of weird contorted directions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the main thing. You want to align your main scope with your finder scopes, and you want to do that. You can do that in the daytime. You do it ahead of time. The idea is, you don't want to go start doing your alignment, and it becomes frustrating when your finder scope is not, aligned to your regular main telescope. Mm-hmm. So we call it the venerable Telrad finder, right? Every telescope, pretty much every telescope, I'd say any telescope over 4 inches, should come with one of these as standard equipment, but it doesn't. You have to buy them. They're like anywhere between $35 and $50. And it's simple, it's functional, it's accurate. These are so when you're adjusting the Telrad to your main telescope, there's 3 screws on the back to adjust the line of sight. So when you're looking at it, it projects a little little bullseye, you know? So you have, it's a set of circles actually. So you got the one in the center is a 1/2 degree. The one in the middle is 2 degrees, and the one on the outside is 4 degrees. And so that's good to know what those circles are. You don't necessarily have to remember them, but you know, 1/2 degree, 2 degrees, 4 degrees, it's pretty good to know, particularly when you're using your telescope without a go-to. So the idea is you want, you know, to center the object in that center center part of the bullseye. And at that point, it should be somewhere in your low power eyepiece. So one of the reasons why we like Telrads, it helps us star hop. And remember, we were talking about 1/2 degree, 2 degrees, 4 degrees. Well, if you know, it takes, you know, we can jump a couple of circles from one star, outer circles from one star to the next and to the next. You can then make a jump to the Andromeda galaxy. So if you're trying to get from Merock, once you find Merock, you know, maybe I have to just do 2 or 3 moves over to get to M31. That makes life a lot easier because you have general idea of how much of the sky you have to move along in this finder to get your telescope where you need to be. So that's one of the real good things about the Telrad. The Telrad is not a finder scope; it's 0 power. That's probably the only drawback, and it's a gift and a drawback because it gives you the field of view as we would look at the sky. So it's a natural field of view. You're not magnified though. So if you're looking at trying to find something very faint, it becomes a little bit difficult, depending on how bright or dark your sky is. So that's why for me, I have a Telrad and a 9x50 or 8x50. Could be right angle, could be straight through. So I put the object in the Telrad first, right? And if for some strange reason it doesn't show up in the main low power eyepiece, I can then go over to the 9x50 finder and see, oh, just how far off am I, you know? And then make my adjustments from there and then go back and then find it. Because you're at 9 power and you get about, you know, 4 to 5 degrees of field out of your finder, similar to a 10x50 binocular. So it's not exactly the same, but it's close. It's close. So it's more examples of Telrads installed on different telescopes. Again, you can see a planet, you know, it's probably Venus, judging from the sky there. This is on a Dob, right? Again, there's the projectile, you know, it's lit up. My Telrad looks a little different than this one. This one has the dew shield on it. So I'm prepared for that getting fogged up too. So this just flips off and it exposes the Telrad. So I'm not the only one that does more than one, you know, the finder and the Telrad. I don't always need to use the finder, but it's nice to have that there as a backup. Our scopes at the school have both, should they need to be used. Okay, so this is an older picture, probably from 2017 or so. Before this is the NJAG C8. It's on the SC mount, and the hand controller is literally on the side of the mount. That's kind of how it's put in there. You would plug in your battery over here, and your start button is down in here. So this is the schematic, and I can share this with you guys too in email. This tells you what all the different, you know, keys do. The align button is number 2. That, you know, instructs the hand controller to begin the process of aligning the telescope. That's not exactly true, because when you hit auto 2-star, you'll see it'll start the alignment. I use align you use the line as the last thing. When you hit enter and you center your object and then you hit a line, that's what sets the, aligns on a star. These number 3, these are the direction keys. This kind of points the telescope up, down, right, left. So altitude is up and down. Azimuth is your, right and left. This plane here is azimuth, and altitude is this right here. So number 4 is actually buttons number 1, 2, and 3 on your hand controller. If you notice, there are numbers, but there are also, things printed on there too, like solar system is button number 1, stars are number 2, and deep sky is number 3. So after you've done your alignment, you would use buttons 1, 2, or 3 to choose the objects you want to look for. So let's say you want to go look at Jupiter, you would choose solar system, number 1. You would choose solar system for the moon, or the sun, if once the sun menu is disabled, which I think it is, not disabled, rather, it's enabled. So you would choose one of these 3 keys. Deep sky is something that you would want to pick, the Andromeda Galaxy or the Orion Nebula, things that are outside our solar system. Stars are, there's a list of stars. You would list them by name, catalog number in there as well. A lot of your double stars like Alberio would be in there, interesting, bright stars, Agol and Perseus. So, I mean, that would be in that catalog tour as well. Identify is something I don't always use, but if you're lined up on an object and you want to find out what it is, you hit identify and it will tell you what it is, if the telescope's lined up properly. Star Tour will pick the objects for because you enter your date and time and location, it'll pick the objects that are above the horizon at that time of year that you could want to look at, that might be, interesting to you. If you don't have something in mind and you just want, to see what's out there, this is the button you would pick. The menu button over here is this number, back, sorry. Number 7, it's on the pad, number 6 on the list. Basically, it's the utilities function, tracking rate. If you wanted to enter the right ascension and declination of an object, let's say you knew the right ascension of declination of Comet Leonard, you can enter that in there. Going into this menu, it would say go to RA deck, and you can enter the right ascension and declination in there, and it'll go to it. So you can program it to go to a specific coordinate if you happen to know that. The help button I've never used, which is number 15. 9. The back button. Yeah. If you have the old version of this hand control, it will say undo and not back, but I don't think we have the old versions anymore. Pressing the back button will take you out of the current menu we're in there. So if you have a menu up here on the screen, it'll take you out one step out. You have to hit back more than once to get to another menu. You can do that. Scroll keys, numbers 6 and 9. When you're inside the menu, you can, if you have to flip through things like a Rolodex, you would hit the 6 and 9 button. It has an up and down arrow buttons on the 6 and 9. And you can scroll through either the utilities menu, or if you're choosing a star through your list, you can use those numbers to go through the list. So the 6 and 9 are very useful for that. And that's most of, one more thing I do want to talk about before I move on. Motor speed. this guy down here, that is very useful. Let's say you're trying to salute a telescope manually and it's moving too fast. You know, you're trying to get it in the eyepiece, and for whatever reason, it's stuck on a faster speed. Well, you hit the motor speed button and you can pick numbers 1 through 9. 1 is the slowest, take way too long. 9 moves super fast. But if you're trying to navigate something, it's just on the edge of your eyepiece, you know, hit a number 4, 5, or 6, and that seems to be the one you want. If you're trying to scroll, find something on the other side of the sky, then you hit the number 9, no motor speed, then number 9, it'll go fast. So, I mean, that's something you've got to get a feel for. And once you do it a couple of times, you'll figure that out pretty easily.
Hey, Mark?
Yeah.
Before you go to, there was one other upgrade. If you mentioned, I just happen to have it here. Number 14 is not RS-232 anymore. It's mini USB. I mean,
Mini
big deal.
USB. Yeah,
Mini
I have the new version of this as well. Yeah. So some are USB and some are RS-232. I don't remember what we have at the school. We might have one of each. If, you know, both work just fine. But the USB is obviously faster when you're upgrading the firmware, which is probably something we should do at some point, but it's not necessary right now.
Yeah, Mark, thank you for mentioning that. I was gonna ask. So are there firmware updates that we need to be aware of?
Yeah, you go to Celestron's site and there are firmware updates. Omar, are you back hanging out in the back there?
Yes, I am.
So what was the last time you updated the firmware on your scope? It's been a while, I imagine, right?
I rarely ever do it. I don't consider it something that, you know, you should do, you know, quite often. Only when absolutely necessary, you know, or as directed by Celestron Tech Support.
Right.
I did it recently for all my cameras. You know, I try to keep track of it, and I think it's been like 2 years since I did it the last time, and there were updates. So
here's if your mount is acting buggy, something's wrong, then yeah, do it.
Try it.
If it's not, if everything's fine, is the old saying is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So yeah,
because I'm sure it's not a simple process that you have to go through to do it.
It's not horrible. It depends. If you have the RS-232, it might take longer than the USB. A little time consuming, but yeah, you don't want to poke the dragon if you don't have to, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, plus you need an RS-232 connector on your laptop, which
I know.
is becoming more and more, invisible. Hey, Mark, I got one other question real quick. In our help, our supporter with the telescope, are we going to be running any software, or do we do everything through the hand controller, or how do we?
You're going to be using the hand controller most of the time. If you want, I don't know if we have any. There is. Let's get the hand controller out of the way first. There are things like Celestron CPWI that we can use to run it off the laptop. But that's something that you want to get good at this first. I mean, really good at this first before you start messing with that other stuff. Because like there's bigger programs like SkyX. You know, and Omar uses that all the time. You know, he does something called RDPing. So he uses his laptop inside his house, and he's got another computer next to his telescope outside. And that telescope, the computer that's running the telescope, he remotes into from the warmth of his, you know, nice kitchen or living room or whatever, and you can control the telescope that way. So those are capabilities. But it's one of those things where you want to learn this stuff first and be really good at it. I mean, myself, I use this 90% of the time. You know, I would say I use this 90% of the time more than anything else, you know. With the software BISC mount, it's all laptop. You don't have a choice. You're going to use a laptop, but this, you know, especially on a telescope night, if you're out there, you want to get up running quickly. This is pretty quick. You know, this is pretty good. I can usually do an alignment under 5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, you know, depending on the conditions and, you know, how clear the sky is that night. With this particular method here. So this is it. I took a bunch of pictures of, you know, the steps that would occur during alignment. And I'll go through this first as a PowerPoint, but then in the end, I'm also going to take my little laptop and I'm going to, you know, take the PowerPoint off, and in the other room is my C8. I brought it down from upstairs, and we're going to go through a little mock alignment, and you'll get to see how it reacts after every one of these procedures. And so I'll also share this PowerPoint again with you guys. I think it's now like 100 slides, but that doesn't matter. It's going to be in PDF form. So basically, when you turn on the telescope, there's a little switch at the bottom. You flick it on, and this is the evolution mount. The SC has a similar little button. I think it goes right and left instead of up and down. With the SC, what the difference is, you want to have there's an external power cord, and you'll plug it into either a battery or an outlet. You know, whatever we want. Usually, we have an outlet out there, so we can usually do that. That's the only, you know, I would say handicap to the SC is that you have to use an external power source. But you don't necessarily you're not necessarily limited to using a lead acid battery anymore. They do have, I don't know if you guys can see, if you can see my little window at my face in here. This little battery in my hand here is a lithium ion battery, and I just, you know, hook it on the mount, and it just hangs in there. And this can run the telescope for, you know, 10 hours, 7-10 hours, no problem. So if you ever decide to do that, you don't want anything too heavy and weighty, that's an option. So, you know, you plug it in, turn it on. The first thing you're going to see on the silos here is going to say verifying packages, please wait. And you might have to wait for, I don't know, 5-10 seconds. And then it'll say, on this mount, it says evolution. If you have the SE mount, it'll say Nexstar SE. And it'll say press enter to begin alignment. You press the enter key. That's the next thing that happens. So the method will be the next thing you want to do. And so the first thing that'll pop up will be sky align. That's basically if you don't know any star in the sky and you pick 3 stars. And so the third star is actually wasted. It's still really a 2-star alignment. The only reason why it picks a third star is, you know, it doesn't know exactly. So if you're picking stars without names, it may not really know which 2 of the 3 you're picking. The third one will give it a triangulation, so it'll actually know where it's pointed in the sky. That method doesn't always work. Huh? Yeah, that method. Yeah, it doesn't always work for me. I've found 50% of the time that it will actually put the sky 180 degrees out of sync. It's literally for some strange reason. So I never use sky align. And frankly, auto 2-star or even 2-star alignment is much more accurate. And it's pretty darn easy because it only needs 2 stars. So if you're in a pinch, let's say, oh, well, I have a group behind me and they're banging down the doors and they want to look at Jupiter right now. You can do solar system align, or if you want to look at the moon and align on one object like Jupiter, you know, like Jupiter and Saturn are close to each other right now in the sky. And you can get by now with that one object. Obviously, Jupiter would be centered. You can pick Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, right? But when you go out, the further you are from that object, the less accurate the alignment becomes. So if you're looking at Jupiter and like, let's say it's dusk and you can't do an alignment yet because Jupiter is the first thing that pops out, that's fine. You can do that and you can show people Jupiter. But if it's dark already, you want to do 2-star alignment, the auto 2-star. That's the most accurate. That gives you the best performance. So how did we get to auto 2-star? We see these little up and down arrows right here. When they're illuminated on the liquid crystal display, that's giving you the hint to use your 6 and 9 buttons down here to scroll through the menu to get to auto 2-star. So that's what that tells you to do. And so you just, scroll through it, hit the up or down button until auto 2-star comes in, and then you hit enter. So from there, because I'm going to just say one thing, because we are, the telescope knows its location already because it hasn't moved from Montclair State. Matter of fact, anywhere relatively close to northern Jersey, you really don't have to go crazy with changing the location. So what it automatically does is then go from the alignment method to the time. And usually you would enter it in 24-hour time. Let's say 8 o'clock is 20, right? 8:30, right? So I have this set for almost now. I did this during the day today. So it's 20, 30, and the seconds don't have to be exact. So once you enter your time in there, you hit enter, and you enter the time by using the numbers on the number pad. And then from there, it will prompt you to select standard time or daylight savings time. So depending on what time of year, you'll pick which one or the other. And again, you're using the scroll keys to pick standard or daylight savings. So right now we're in standard time, so we pick standard time. So now it would say, it'll go first alignment star, so make sure you put your low power eyepiece in there, somewhere between 25 and 40 millimeters. Pick one of them.
Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you had moved the scope to a different location, it would ask you for the coordinates before the time?
You would have to hit the back button when you fire up the telescope. I was going to get to that. I didn't want to confuse people now.
Okay. Okay. I can wait. That's okay. I can wait.
Remind me later. Yeah. Remind me later. You would hit the back button a bunch of times. It would jump back to that at that point. But yes.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. So you put your what you're saying. So before I move on, so while the telescopes are at MSU, you don't have to worry about them, knowing what the location is. It's already pre-programmed in there. So when you're rushing to grab the telescopes, you don't have to worry about, does it know where it is? It already knows where it is. It's already in there.
But you still have to go through the process of all the commands. You just keep hitting enter.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. The only thing it won't ask you for is location, because it remembers location, but all the other variables change on a regular basis. So
how does it know? But how does it know that it's in the same location?
It doesn't. It assumes you're in the same location.
Yeah,
if you move, then it's on you to hit the back button and then choose a new location.
Okay, so it remembers the previous settings, and
Correct.
You just have to scroll through them because you know that they're correct. Okay.
Yep. That's right. So with your low power eyepiece, you find your first alignment star. The telescope, because you picked auto align, will automatically pick a star. And that may or may not be visible. It may be behind a building or a tree or something. If it's visible and you like that star, it's in a good place in the sky, you can, you hit enter. And then you have to, the only thing about this, you have to move the telescope manually with the first star with the arrow keys, right? So up, down, right, left. So you have to hold the button down until it gets to the right, then you put it in your tail rad. You line it up in your tail rad, right? So it's on the bullseye, right? Then you hit enter. From there, you go to the eyepiece. If it's in the tail rad, it should be somewhere in the eyepiece. At least it may not be centered, but it'll be close. It'll be in there somewhere. And then after you hit enter, it slows down. It automatically slews slowly. So when you move the buttons, it doesn't race out of the eyepiece on you. So it'll slowly slew in the direction you're hitting the button. So if you're trying to center it, it'll move slowly and not very fast. So you'll be able, so instead of the object zip when you hit the right button, or it'll zip when you hit the left button, you hit the button, it'll move slowly. Look at my finger, and then up, right? So you move, it'll move slow enough so your reaction time is not gonna, be an issue there. And once you hit center, it's centered, you hit enter and align, and then it will ask you to go to the next star. And so say select star number 2. And usually you want to pick something, if you're in the eastern part of the sky, you want to pick something in the western part of the sky. Doesn't have to be hugely far apart from each other. The only thing is you don't want it too close to the horizon, because you'll have refraction, and it'll throw off your pointing a little bit. So, as long as we're on different parts of the sky, you're on the eastern hemisphere and the western hemisphere, you're usually in good shape. So when you hit you select your second star, you can, if Alpharets comes up, okay, in this instance, that's fine. If the star that it picks is not visible for any reason, you can use, again, you can see the up and down arrows are indicated here. You use the scroll buttons and scroll through the list until you find a star that's suitable. Now, Mary Lou actually, now I'm remembering this now, Mary Lou actually asked a homework assignment for you guys, picking a couple of alignment stars. We'll get to that a little later on at the end. But this is why you want to know the sky, at least the bright stars in the sky and where they are, because they're going to be in this list. And these are some of the alignment stars that you want to pick from that list. And so basically what the telescope is doing is it has a model of the sky, and it's just lining up its internal model with what is actually above it in the sky.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Okay, so in my backyard, I have a lot of trees, and it inevitably picks a star right behind a tree. So I use the little up and down arrows quite a lot. And I reject its first one, I reject its second one, I pick its third one. That's okay. And then it says, pick your next one, and it picks another one that's bad and another one that's bad. And then finally it picks another one that's okay. So that happens quite a lot.
Right. And it sometimes at certain times of the year, that star will be in a good position. And then in other times of the year or other times of the night, it will be behind a tree, so don't always say Alpharets is bad or Rigel is bad because I can't see it or whatever reason. It's not always going to be the case because the sky changes. So, so once you get to the second star, you're choosing the second star, you hit enter. Now, the difference between this step and the last one is now the telescope will automatically slew to that part of the sky, whereas the first star, you had to move it manually by hand with the directional arrows. This time, the telescope will automatically go to Alpharets. So then you'll do exactly the same thing you did for the first star. You will want to put it in the tail rad, center bullseye. And when you do that, you hit enter. And then from there, you want to center the star in the eyepiece, completely. And then you hit align, right? And the next thing you'll get is align success. And then it'll either say next star SE or it'll say evolution. So it's ready to go at this point.
Question.
Yes.
Is it better to use a reticle to center?
You mean a
reticle eyepiece?
A reticle eyepiece. You can.
That-
So here's the thing, and this there's good and bad. Most reticle eyepieces, not all, are higher power eyepieces. If you get one that's a lower power, like 20 millimeters, or sometimes you can find a 25 millimeter, that gives you more of a field of view.
Right.
Some of them are like 12 millimeters, and they give it tiny field of view. So what you could do if you have one with 12 millimeters, if you really want to get that precise, is you can actually pull out the low power and put the reticle in, and then really zone in on it, and then put the low power back in when you're done.
Yeah.
You could do that as well.
Yeah, just swap it around to, yeah, I see.
Right.
That's good.
I find I don't need to do that visually. With the camera, and that's just something you'll find later on, and Omar loves to use this. Within the camera software, it can turn your computer screen into a giant reticle, and you can center the thing on your computer screen, which is kind of cool. Right, you can do that in one shot while you're doing it.
Nice.
So that's the cool part about that, and we will get to that later on with the camera and whatnot. Probably another day. So basically, that's the alignment. You're there, and from this point, you can pick an object. So at that point, you can pick buttons 1, 2, or 3. Again, we went to before. Number 1 is solar system objects. That's moon, sun, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Mars. Stars are just that: stars, double stars, named stars. There's a list in there. Deep sky has, when you press that, you can go through deep sky. It has a bunch of sublists in there, and you use the scroll keys. Once you press deep sky, you can find named objects. Like when named objects, you can scroll through that list, and you can pick things that have their common names, like the Ring Nebula or the Andromeda Galaxy or Orion Nebula will be up there. The one I use the most is Messier objects, because I have 90% of the Messier catalog in there in my head. And so M13, M92, M45, those different star clusters. M42 is the Orion Nebula, so you'll know that, sort of thing. So those, once you become more familiar with Messier catalog, most people use that. You can use named objects also if you're not familiar with, but Messier objects are the ones, particularly on telescope night. The predominant amount of stuff we're going to find that's in the deep sky, we're going to use from that list. There's the new general catalog, the NGC. That's mostly fainter stuff. There's some things that aren't as faint, like the Perseus double cluster. They're in the NGC catalog. Messier must have missed them for whatever reason. But they're in the NGC catalog. And so like 884 and 869 are, on the Perseus double cluster. That's in the NGC catalog. But I mean, you'll get a feel for some of these things. And what we might wind up doing is making, little cue cards. And I think Mary Lou has some already made at the college, of an object list for like March and April and May. Maybe we will do something like that. Ironically, speaking of object lists and stuff, Claire gave me something, a total offshoot. She found an old star chart from March of 2020. That was the last time we did a telescope night, which was early March 2020. But what we can do is if they're not there, we can put a list of stuff for the spring, summer, and fall that you might want to pick in this catalog, and we can attach it to the telescope. But once you learn the sky better, you kind of know what's out there already. Like I said, you go through that book, you go through a whole year, you're just gonna start saying, hey, wait, it's January 5th. Orion is in the east right now. M42 is right over such and such's house. I know exactly where that'll be,
Behind that tree.
right or behind that tree, unfortunately. Darn it.
Mhm.
Oh no. That's terrible. I'm sorry.
Or it's directly overhead, and so you gotta bend around to see it.
Right in your neck.
Right, but the good thing with a go-to is you don't have to bend that much. The telescope will do the bending for you. So, and that's what a diagonal is good for.
Mhm.
So yeah. So again, here's an example here. I chose the most common deep sky catalog, Messier, right? And then you hit enter. And then you'll select the object, and this is Messier 1. That's the what you call it, the Crab Nebula. And then from there tell us. This was actually a go-to that I did in my living room, and then it went right off to it. It went to find it. Of course, the telescope wasn't positioned properly at this point, but it's okay. It's in the house. But at that point, it should put M1 in the eyepiece. If it's off a tiny bit, you can use the slew buttons to adjust it. Again, you have finder scopes, but more than likely it'll put it right in the eyepiece. At least in your low power, you want to have your low power eyepiece in there when you're doing alignments. And so before I move over to the telescope itself, or maybe we should break. So Mary Lou can ask you guys about your homework assignment. Before we do that, is there any questions so far? I know I went through a bunch of stuff here. We want me to go back, a little fuzzy about anything?
I got it.
Oh, cool. All right. So I'm going to hand this to Mary Lou for a minute. I'm going to stop my share. There we go.
Okay. So what I'd like to hear from people is what particular alignment stars they would have picked. And so I want to ask Mark. I'm in the living room with the television on for Roger.
Right.
But maybe he's asleep now, so I can turn the sound down. So just a minute.
Okay.
Is it okay to ask who's Roger?
Mary Lou's husband.
Yeah, her husband.
Good. He did not react to that. So, so there we are. So let's see, who would like to go first with alignment stars?
I'll go.
Okay. What'd you pick?
I actually found 6 stars that I like. And this is for winter sky, let's say 9 p.m.
All right.
Give
So
or
sort of
take about.
January 9 p.m.
Yeah. So I was thinking in my mind a 3-star alignment. I wanted to get like a triangulation. So I had Castor, Sirius, and Aldebaran. And the second choice would be Procyon.
Wait.
Okay.
So, do you have a map there?
Yeah, I do.
So hold it up and say, this one's Castor, this one's Sirius, and this is Aldebaran.
Okay.
There we go. That's beautiful. We can see it just fine. So which one is Castor? You need 3 fingers is the problem.
Castor's over here.
All right, so could you
Let's do
put
it.
your one of your hands toward that one? So you
Yeah.
got sort of a finger there.
Yeah.
And then you did Sirius. Where's that one?
Sirius is, let's proceed. Sirius is here.
So that's a goodly ways away.
Yeah. Did I have, no, I had, that's wrong. I picked one out of the dipper. Castor's over here. I'm sorry.
So Castor's over there.
Castor's there. Sirius.
Is that in the east
here.
part of the sky or the west part?
At this time, it's more toward the eastern part.
Okay, and then Sirius is
Right.
down at the bottom.
Yeah, and
And is
also
that east or west?
that's also east.
That's also east. Okay,
Yeah,
and then where's Aldebaran?
Aldebaran is here.
Okay,
Is more to the west. It's west of the zenith.
okay, so why did you pick, let's just do these three. Why did you pick these particular 3 stars?
Okay. First, I wanted to pick something that was bright.
Bright is a very good criteria.
Number one. I was also number 2 trying to avoid the trees,
Good.
and the third reason I wanted to get like a triangulation.
So bright triangle and no trees. Okay, so in my backyard, I can never see Sirius at that time of night because it's down among the low trees.
Yeah.
But anyway, you did good. Okay, so that's all you get for tonight. We'll talk
Okay.
about the others sometime next. Who wants to go next?
I'll go.
Okay, Jeff.
Yep. All right, I had 3 scenarios. One was from my back door because I have steps that have to drag everything down. So sometimes I just set it up right outside the back door on the top landing of the stairs. So from that position, I can see Polaris. And I really haven't confirmed this, but Menkar, which is in Cetus, which is in the southern sky. Yeah, so you know where Polaris is, of course, and then diametrically opposed almost is the constellation Cetus. By the way, I'm using Mach 6 because I'm going to be setting up probably 6 to 8 or at night at this time of year. Got to get out there, you know, a little bit earlier. So
Okay,
I'm using the map 6, which puts it there. If I was down in my driveway.
no, you got 2 stars. You got a third one yet?
No, I didn't do 3. I just did 2-star alignment.
2-star alignment. Okay, so Polaris and Menkar.
Yes.
Okay,
And-
that's good enough. Who wants to go next? Ed, are you there? We've lost Ed.
You didn't lose me. I'm coming. I'll be right with you in 2 seconds. Let me find my glasses.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, showing my age now. There you go. All right, hold on. All right, I'm good
That
now.
doesn't matter. I've worn glasses since I was 3. So it's
Oh,
okay.
no, that's true. Thank you. Let me get
There
the
you go.
camera back on. Okay. I actually had to go back and highlight the stars that I chose because I couldn't read them on the star chart.
See
So,
there?
even with my glasses. All right. So, you know, I had a couple of questions, and you know, I do remember during the training session that we wanted to kind of keep the stars as not, well, more separated the better, but watch the horizon for the aperture. Wanted to keep them relatively close. I wanted to keep some above on the northern side of the ecliptic and then some down on the southern side. So I tried to spread it out on what I might see from the house. Okay. So with
What town do you live in?
I live in Clifton.
From
I'm-
Clifton.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
actually facing the eastern sky because I can see the New York skyline from my back my back patio. So I
Okay,
got a lot
okay.
of light. Yeah. So I was thinking for myself, I know Regulus is a little close to the eastern horizon, but it is a really good bright one. So I would keep that one in the list, but I might have to go over to what was it? Procyon? I gotta look it up. Sorry. Not as good as-
Procyon.
Procyon, thank you. But then my second in that general area.
Can I tell you something here?
Yes, absolutely, please.
Procyon is the first dog.
Yes.
So he's pro means first,
Mhm.
and Sion was from canine. So he's the
Ah.
first dog, Procyon.
Procyon. Thank you.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you. And he
Procyon.
is in the constellation Canis Minor, the
Well,
lesser
there you
dog.
go.
There you
Woof,
go.
woof.
Well, he's also known as a little dog star. Well, you did say to throw in some tidbits. So I
Yes,
was
I
trying
think
to
this is great.
throw
This
in
is
some
great.
tidbits. So yes, he's also known as the little dog star, but it is Procyon. So I had Procyon, Polaris, and then Menkar in the in Cetus. Menkar in Cetus, the brightest star in the head of Cetus, the whale, which is Menkar, has a magnitude of 2.54. Second brightest star in Cetus also goes by the name of Alpha Ceti, but I went with Menkar in Cetus. So I was looking for then something a little towards the west. Menkar, Polaris is always big, but my question with Polaris was, since it's pretty much stationary, is it still a good target?
It is a good target,
Oh, good.
except in my backyard where it's always behind a particular tree.
Oh,
And the blessed thing never moves, so it's always behind the tree because the tree doesn't move either.
that's right.
They're
is-
stuck together.
And that can
And
be
also,
an issue.
I find Polaris is faint, so I cannot find it as easily anywhere else. Like at Montclair State, I cannot find Polaris as easily because it's not very bright as some of these others are.
Gotcha. So,
Okay.
so Polaris is usually pretty good for me in my, in my location. Regulus, I don't know, and Menkar I never really even looked for before, but those would have been 3. Or
That's good enough. That's all you
right.
get.
Oh, good.
So
That's
we'll
all I
say
need. Okay.
Procyon, Polaris, and Menkar.
Okay, boy.
Okay. Good job.
Cut me short on my presentation. No, I'm just kidding.
That's okay. That's okay.
Thank
So-
you.
The next question is coming,
Oh, yes.
Who else is here? Omar, what ones would you choose? Are you there? We lost Omar.
No, I'm here. Well, I mean, it's if I'm on the deck, I mean, this time of year, I may use just a couple of general stars in the vicinity of the target that I'm going to be imaging that night. So, but in most cases, something simple, 2-star alignment, Deneb, Calf, Cirrus.
So Deneb would be one. Okay, is Deneb on the east or the west side of?
That's more west. That's more west.
Okay, and that's a nice bright star.
Yeah, it's a good one too. And Calf, which is right overhead.
What constellation is Calf in?
Oh, it's a good one. I can't remember the name of the constellation. Mark, help me out.
It's Cassiopeia, isn't it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Cassiopeia.
Okay.
And then if I'm lucky, I might get the Capella. If I
Why
get it,
would Capella be lucky?
because it dodges a tree.
Okay, there you go.
And like you, Mary Lou, I can never get Polaris because it is behind a tree that's probably about, I don't know, 60 feet tall.
Yeah. I know
Yeah,
what you
and
mean.
you're just utterly stuck. I mean, you just can't.
Yeah. I can never do Polaris, which is what I wanted to say earlier, with the mounts and the hand controllers. I use my hand controller to always check my polar alignment just because of that, because I can never get myself lined up on Polaris. So just another tidbit.
Right. Okay, so we have Deneb in the west, Calf is overhead, and Capella. What are you calling Capella? Which direction is that?
Capella is more north.
Northeast.
Yeah, northeast. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. This time depends on time of night, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and almost overhead as well. It's a
Almost
nice
overhead, yeah.
It's
central sort of
above
thing.
the ecliptic. Yeah.
Right. So we got anybody else? Who else is on here?
Mark?
We have Kevin and
Yeah, Kevin might be away. He just started the meeting, but
okay. All right, so
but for me, I mean, I have
in your yard.
in my yard, mostly on the east side, I have 20 to 30 degrees above the horizon and up, and on the west side, maybe 35 and up. So if I started this time of night, more than likely, maybe I might pick, usually something east on the eastern side and the western side. So maybe I would pick Aldebaran in Taurus, and then maybe like I did before, Alpharetta, or maybe Skadar in Cassiopeia, somewhere, you know, on that eastern side there. So what else would I pick? Beetlejuice is a little low, but it's still usable this time of night. From Malahoot, I can see because the leaves are off the oak tree in the south, so I can kind of catch that still.
Trees are
and,
pretty important. So
Yep.
when we ever get up to Montclair State, there are not many trees, but there's a huge number of buildings
right.
that really block out big chunks of the sky. So we should each of us know like 4 stars, because when you get to Montclair State, you're going to go, oh, building, oh, rats, there's one.
Right.
And then we will make new lists for what's available. And there's really, as I found at Montclair State, 2 different places we put the telescopes. So one is our little patio straight out from the doors of the cells building. But then there's often people would take the telescope on its wheels down 100 yards toward the south, where there's another sort of opening in the walkway, and fewer buildings. So that's a possibility. And so we have to look at what you would do at this place or what you would do at that place for alignment stars. And I think everybody has picked interesting ones. One of the ones that I can pick, because the trees is Doobie. So the first pointer star in the Big Dipper, where the water would go out,
Right.
is one that I can find fairly often. I find it useful, as Chris said, to pick bright stars, and then also to pick bright stars that happen to be in a pattern. So you can say, oh, it's that bright star. Oh, I think it is. Oh yeah, there's the rest of the swidge that goes around it. So I know it's that one. And brightness is very important, and lack of trees or barriers is also very important too. Everybody did great. I'm really pleased with that. So something.
Sorry, go ahead, Mary.
So something I think is interesting is to make a Xerox of your map or whatever, circle them in red so you can see them in the daytime, but then circle them in blue so you can see them at night with your red flashlight. So you have one that you can bring in your hand and say, this is my first trial and I'm going to try it. So
Okay.
Mark, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I had an idea, wondering if what Omar thought of this was maybe to go to Montclair State at certain times of the year. And do we have, or do you have rather, like an all-sky camera or anything like attached to like your 224 that you can actually snap a picture of the stars in January in front of Montclair State, you know, and then we can kind of, you know, have a picture and know and put a circle like, oh, well, that's Polaris, and over there, that's Sirius, and another one is, oh, that's Procyon. Just a thought. It may be too hard to do, but it might be nice to have like the profile of the buildings and the stars that are out that time of year.
Is that a fisheye camera?
Yeah, you need
Yeah, like a fisheye camera.
Yeah, we actually, I mean, I've got the couple of different ones with different fish eyes. Come with the camera, so might be something we can look at.
Yeah, it's just a thought. Just
Yeah.
a thought.
That's a
But
good idea.
so if anyone has any other
So
questions, or Mary Lou does.
Ed was going to say something and then we should move on.
Yeah, thanks. Real quick, can we go up to Montclair and walk around? I mean, I know we're going to get together sometime, but no, you cannot. There you go.
Well,
Okay.
yes,
I don't know, why not?
So yes, you can,
Ah,
but you have to log yourself in through the Red Hawk COVID thing
yep.
The check, Red Hawk check.
within the previous 24 hours and say, I don't cough, I don't sneeze, I don't talk to people, I'm fine, check off. Yeah, then you can go and walk around. I think that's a good idea. Another thing I did
Oh, cool.
one year was to take my star map for 8 o'clock that night or whatever. And I went and with a pencil, I drew buildings on the edge of the map.
That's a great idea.
You know, so somebody's good at sketching. Hi, Mark. Could do that sort of thing. Or my granddaughter, who's a good sketcher, could do something like that. But anyway, that would be useful to have something to say, yeah, this star is just by the left entrance of building blah, and that other star is behind building blah, blah. But just to have sort of the squarish outline.
Turn the
Sorry.
lights out, use that key for like 10 minutes to draw your sketch and then go back in.
Go back
Is
in.
You get blinded by those lights.
All right, thanks. I'm gonna do that. I'm right off of Valley Road, so I could just go straight on down and I'm at Montclair. I'm only
Oh, yeah, you're right.
10 minutes away. Yeah. I will
Mhm.
shoot up there and walk around, but I'll do the Red Hawk first. Thanks.
Cool. Anybody else? Got any? Okay, so I am gonna go and move the cursor, move with the computer, and we're gonna take a little walk. Huh. Everybody say hi, Claire.
Are you, oh, hello. Hello.
Giving the
Claire.
cats their treats. Yeah. We're doing our little walk through here.
Who have I got? Mary Lou?
Yeah.
Who else have I got? Who else have I got?
Mary Lou, Chris, Jeff,
Hi,
Ed
Chris.
Parkin. I don't think it's my wife, Claire.
Hi, sort of Omar.
Sort of Omar. Omar's in the back there.
Hey, Claire.
Okay, so
Hi.
see you later. So where are we? Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the telescope. All right, how do I get myself on the big screen here?
That's fine.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Maybe if I talk more, it'll automatically go to me.
Yeah.
I see it. I see it you as you.
That's the way it works.
You are on the big screen. Oh,
I'm on
there's
the big
Jeff.
screen. There's Jeff.
Yeah, it's changed. They see different things.
Oh, everybody sees different things. All right.
Yeah, it depends on what they're.
Speaker view or gallery view, you can choose. which one.
Right. I'm the one that's, well, I don't know. Let's see. So can you see my telescope in the background here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. So I am going to, we'll pretend there's an eyepiece in there right now. So I'm gonna,
Do you have
Turn
to
the
start? Do you have to start at level or anything like that?
oh, well, it is level. I can show you that there is.
No, the
a-
telescope is pointing up at the sky. Do you have to have the telescope pointing straight level?
This time, for this telescope, no, I don't.
Okay, so with my telescope, I have to start pointing it at the garage, pointing straight.
Right, because it uses that level north technology type thing. Yeah.
Right.
So this is a little different. So if I were hypothetically using the Celestron CPWI program, I would have to, there's a notch up here. I would have to make it level, but I don't. For this, you don't have to worry about it being level because you're manually putting the stars in. So first thing I do is power up the telescope and it'll say verifying packages. Please wait. And now it's gone to evolution, press enter to begin alignment. So I press enter. And now it's saying what method, sky align. We don't want that. So I'm going to go through and scroll down until it says auto 2-star alignment. Then I hit enter. And the time is 8:55, so it's gonna be 20:55, and the seconds I don't worry about. and then you just hit enter again. Standard time, I don't just hit enter because it's on standard time. And then the date, you just enter 01/05/22 and then hit enter. And it's picking the first star for me, Aldebaran, this time. So if I don't want to pick Aldebaran, I say, I want to pick another star. I scroll through the list.
Got it.
You know, I use the scroll keys. Let's say, okay, I pick Alpharets.
Okay, so here's something also that sometimes is useful. We have criteria like the star should be bright. The star should be in a triangle with the other two that you're thinking of. The star should be not behind a tree. The star should start with A or B.
Well, that's neat because you don't have to scroll down the alphabet all that far.
Yeah.
Depending on this hand controller does start with at A and go that way, but you can cheat and you can go scroll up and you can go back to it'll go back to V for Vega if I keep going up from Aldebaran. So
Okay.
Hey, Mark,
you
question
can
on
go
that.
back. Sorry?
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
Can you accelerate the scrolling? Is there
Tried
any way
that.
to?
Oh yeah, if I keep it my finger down,
Speeds up.
it'll speed up. Yeah,
Does it speed up or just start counting off automatically?
speeds up. It
It's going
progressively
back-
speeds up. Yeah,
It's going faster over time?
yeah. And then all of a sudden, yep.
Oh, okay, good. I don't have that.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
All right, so let's see. I lost my spot. All right, so Aldebaran. We'll start with Aldebaran. Okay, so I hit enter. Now it says center Aldebaran. So that means I got to use, it's the first star, so I have to use these keys in order to get to Aldebaran. So I just have to kind of assume where Aldebaran is going to be right now. In the sky. Now you hit enter. Right, and now you use the arrow keys again. You would go from the finder to the eyepiece, and it slews very slowly now. You can barely even see the telescope moving if I hit the buttons. And then you hit align, and it says select star 2. It's picking Sirius. So I know Sirius is kind of down low in the east. Now, I don't think that's a great star to pick because you would kind of omit the accuracy on the western part of the sky. So I would use my scrolling buttons and find something on the western part of the sky. Well,
Can you
well,
grab
if you could see Dubhe in the Big Dipper, that's a good star. We're going to pick that. Actually, let me keep going. Deneb is nice and low right now. So I'm going to hit Deneb. And now the telescope is moving on its lonesome. Deneb's going to be pretty low. So I may decide that that's not a good idea. Yeah, it's almost on the horizon.
Did you pick Alpharets
The last time I did,
for the first star?
No, it's Aldebaran.
I did
Oh,
Aldebaran.
okay.
Alpharets was the same. Initially, I picked Alpharets last time. But if you see how low the telescope is,
Yeah.
that's actually an example of like, you know what? I wouldn't probably not pick that. It went up a little higher, but that might be what? 15 degrees above the horizon? You know, so instead of doing center and align, I'm going to hit back. Now I go, it put me back in the second star menu again. I can pick another star.
Capella.
Will give me Alpharets, Betelgeuse, Alpharets. There we are. Let's hit
Yeah.
Alpharets. Oh, there we go. That's a little higher up. That's a little better.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Sorry, don't mean to interrupt. I have a 9 o'clock. I got to break away. It's just a little after 9. So
Gotcha.
I'll watch the video. So please send the link when it's ready.
Yeah, you got it. I mean,
Okay.
there's not much more to it anyway, but you got it. No worries.
Okay.
right.
Yeah, I don't want to be too late. So thanks, Mark. It was great. Thank you very
You
much.
got it.
Everybody
You're
have a good night.
See
Hi,
ya.
Ed.
Take care, Ed. So now, and just to center it, so I'll just, if I'm looking through the Telrad, you see how it still moves appreciably a little bit here. You hit enter. Once you got it in the Telrad, you know, now you can barely see the telescope moving. And then I just hit align and align success. That's it. That's the alignment. If I want to pick from here, I want to go to deep sky. It says named objects. If I want to scroll through and get to Messier, I hit Messier. I hit Messier. Let's do the Andromeda Galaxy. So I hit 0, 3, 1. So it fills up the whole screen. And enter. And off it'll go.
Mark, is it worth adding a third alignment?
With an Altaz telescope, it is. There are things in the menu. If, let's say, your alignment isn't that well, you can do a precise go-to. Let's say M31 isn't, you know, in the eyepiece and you really can't find it. You know, and you don't know, you can't find it manually by putting it in the Telrad.
Mm-hmm.
If I go into let's see, back menu, trying to see if I can find it. Utilities. No, I gotta find it. But it's in one of these menus where you can find precise go-to. Precise go-to. Okay, so you go in the menu and you scroll down and you find precise go-to, right? You hit enter. And it's database. Now you go Messier, hit enter again. 031 is in there already. I hit enter. It's searching. It's doing a search, right?
Mm-hmm.
It says, well, I want to pick Meroc. That's the closest star it finds, bright star, to M31. So if I hit enter, it goes to Meroc. Now you'll line it up in the same way. And you hit not align this time, you just hit enter.
Okay.
It'll go straight back to M31. And now it should be in the eyepiece. So yes, it's better if it would be able to give you more alignment stars. If you had a AVX mount, it would give you like up to 6 alignment stars and your accuracy is really good. What the Altaz, they only give you 2, and you can add a third one in a particular part of the sky you're looking at if you're having trouble.
Okay.
In
Got
that. So it's in that, you know, ask me about that if you want to learn more about precise go-to. I haven't had to use it in a while. But it's in your hand controller where you can do that. It technically adds another star close to the object. If you have an object that's not centered and you can't find it, it increases the pointing accuracy in that part of the sky by centering on another star nearby.
Right. Got
So
it.
it's like refining your alignment.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. You know,
And-
you'll find your alignments are best closest to the alignment stars you pick. And that's why I try to pick alignment stars on two sides of the meridian, because at least you'll have good pointing all the way around.
Right.
You know, if you're going to concentrate on one particular part of the sky and you're not going to do anything else, then maybe having two stars in that part of the sky makes sense.
Yeah, Omar mentioned that. He said he aligns on stars that are near the target that he's looking for.
Right. But if you're going to be out all night and you're going to be looking at a whole bunch of stuff, then you want to
Yeah.
keep them far apart.
Right.
You know, if you're going to be working in one area and you know you're going to be working in one area, then yeah, then put them closer together. One of the beautiful things about software BISC and what's called that T-point alignment is that you can put 100, 200, 300 stars in the alignment. You can map the entire sky, and you'll never have to worry about anything. With this, I mean, that's the difference between, a $1,500 telescope and a $10,000 telescope. That's literally the difference.
Maybe next Christmas.
Yeah, next lottery Christmas or whatever. Yeah, manna from heaven. This is fine enough for me, honestly. I mean, that's great. If you can afford it, that's wonderful. But for most purposes, this is fine, honestly. These mounts are easy. The reason why I like these so much is because they combine, accuracy and relative accuracy and portability. And that's really, kind of for me, the name of the game for the most part, because if I can't lift it, it becomes a problem. If the telescope's on wheels, that's not a big deal. That's not as big a deal anyway. But this is a telescope not only I use on my front porch, I use in the winter time, but I also take it to, you've probably seen it at a lot of events. It's, easy to pack up and take places. And it offers a lot for its size. But you guys, any other questions? I guess the next step would be actually finding some time when it's both clear and not, really cold.
Good timing, Mark.
I know.
There, Mark.
January is perfect, right, guys?
Yeah.
You're right.
Why don't we meet in North Carolina?
Right.
Well, and when Terry is available, so we could use his little rooftop telescope.
He did mention, I spoke with him earlier today. He said, just let him know ahead of time. And he's got it, as long as his schedule works, we can definitely do, go to his place and practice there. And the good thing is Terry has an 8SE. It's the same type of go-to system, same type of telescope. So like you said, if the 8SE has exactly, and Chris knows it has exactly the same go-to system as the Evolution. The only difference that you'll see, the Montclair State telescopes have the same mount, but they have that silly star sense thing that if you ever go on cloudy nights, you see a lot of them for sale. People that buy those telescopes. Yeah, exactly. Larry Lou's laughing because they put them up for sale because they don't hold their alignment well. That little camera, it's a neat idea, but if it gets jarred the least little bit, it throws everything off. And you're better off just replacing it with a regular hand controller. If you get the regular Evolution, it comes with this hand controller. If you get the Edge HD version, which the school got a bunch of, it gets those star sense things. So next time we see Mark, we got to convince him to buy a bunch of regular hand controllers and ditch that because a star sense is not what it's cracked up to be.
Shucks.
Yeah.
Okay, so in another week we're having a meeting, right? It's still on Wednesday at this point.
I believe so. So here's
Yeah.
the $6 million question. Do we want to? What do we do? First of all, we have Omicron to deal with.
So I have a suggestion.
Wear your mask.
Okay. It's just 1 week, and I think Omicron is still going to be quite high. So I suggest doing it by Zoom. I suggest, since the program is stated to be how to learn the sky and use the telescopes, that we have a very short program and then do a business meeting. And the short program would be Mark Zadarsky here doing, I don't know, maybe 3 slides or something about the night sky. And then having what we just had, the 4 or 5 people say why they would pick certain alignment stars. And then also have the same people each give 1 or 2 objects that they would like to look at in the sky. So one I think is really good. Somebody should say something about M31 and how far away it is. And so we're looking at light that's very, very old and that sort of thing. And then have the business meeting. So just have the outcome of a little bit of Mark's training, but not much. And the outcome of Mark's training is that we've learned how to pick alignment stars, and the criteria are the star has to be bright, it has to be in a recognizable constellation or part of the sky we could pick it out for the pattern. It has to be right, left, and center, whatever, so it's a triangle. And it has to be so it's not at behind a building or a star or a tree, something like that. Do you think we could do that from what we did tonight? I think we can.
Probably pull that off. So do you want me to speak some of it and then have the rest of the group speak the rest of this part? Or, you know, how do you
Yeah,
want me to-
I would like you to speak very little.
Okay.
I haven't looked at your slides in particular.
I'll
but-
resend them again because it's
No,
it's
we
now.
haven't. Well, whatever. Yeah, whatever you want to do.
Let me know what you want and don't want. You know, I mean, if you want me to just talk about constellations,
How about constellations appear at different seasons? That
I
one.
can do that. I can
Just
turn
that one.
that
It's a
into
little. Here we go, and
concise.
it's over there, or it's over here, and the sun is here. And hey,
Yeah.
Kevin.
Yeah, I was just going to say I came back on just as you were describing your idea. Mark, would it be better if we did stellarium with that
That'd be good.
instead of slides, because that
Much
would be easier to see, I think, than the
Yeah.
PowerPoints kind of thing.
We
You
can
know,
do that. I think that's good.
and certainly as people are talking about their guide star, whatever, we could turn and look at that particular star and show people where it is. You know, and we could easily do 20 minutes, 30 minutes with that, maybe something like that. You know.
Okay, but I would like to have the main part of the program be the 4 or 5 people we heard from.
Right.
That's Chris, Jeff, Ed, Omar, and Mark. Right, each saying why they would pick certain stars, and they were a lot of them fairly different. So I thought that was particularly interesting.
Yeah.
And so the one I would like to see, particularly in stellarium, is Menkar in Cetus. I don't think I've ever seen that star.
Oh, yeah, no.
But a couple people like it, so there it is.
Yeah, we can look at that. That's down low, but we can definitely look at that.
And then we would have our target object that we'd be looking for.
Right.
That sounds like a plan. That sounds good.
So let's see about objects. Chris, what did you pick for objects?
I had a couple. I was going to look at Castor since it's a multiple star system, and it leads you to talk about the difference between an optical and a gravitational binary.
Great idea. That's perfect.
Okay. And if you wanted to talk a little bit about the mythology of the twins, Castor and Pollux. The next one was M45, the Pleiades. It's an open star cluster and young stars. And there's a mythology behind that relates to North American Indians. That could be discussed. And also,
Which-
if it's the first Messier object you're talking to the group about, it's also gives you an opportunity to talk about Messier, who he was and what he did.
Great,
and
that's
why.
good. So who else is still on? Jeff, what did you pick?
I had was looking at the Orion Nebula and the trapezium. Talk about it being in the star birthing region and all that. And then I took another one, be looking at Aldebaran as targeted from Sirius through the belt and hitting Aldebaran, and then continuing on from there to Hyades, and from there to Pleiades, and just talk about them, what kind of stars are in them, and
Great.
well, that.
Great. Yeah, I like the idea also of teaching people star hopping. You start here
Yeah.
and you go to the next
Yeah.
one, you keep on going, and then you keep
It's
on
always
going.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, so Ed's gone away. Omar, what sort of one would you pick to talk about?
Shoot, well, I mean, I had picked Deneb and Calf.
No,
Uh,
no, not stars, but objects.
Oh, objects. Ooh.
Objects. We're into objects now. Pick
Oh,
two.
okay.
Pick two. Just tell me two.
Okay, we could talk about the, let's see here, I think. I just did the Foxford Nebula. So that's a good one.
Can you see that visually through an 8-inch telescope
I
at a light polluted site?
don't think so.
No, you've got to image
Need
that
something
thing.
that's common,
Oh,
low hanging
no,
fruit.
Low hanging fruit. Orion. I mean, that's you know, you can see that with an 8-inch
That's true.
telescope. Okay, there you go.
So the Orion Nebula, that's a good one. What else would you pick?
Ah, man. Since I don't do much viewing, everything I do, everything I do is imaging, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
He likes gas clouds. You know what?
Yeah.
What about the
Yeah,
Rosette Nebula? You don't know if you can see that through an 8-inch.
No, I don't know.
No.
I don't think you're gonna see that through an 8-inch.
Yeah.
No way. What clusters we got out there that are still hanging around? I know there's
What
one.
about M15? That might be a little. M15 is still out
Do you
there.
have a picture of M15,
Maybe.
Omar?
Somewhere. I'm sure I do.
There you go. Pick M15.
Yeah, M15. Because I mean, there's that cluster that's down, that Glauber cluster that's down by below the jellyfish. What the heck is that guy down
And I
there?
think M15 is too low. It's sinking in the west right away.
Thinking. All right.
Yeah, no, yeah, there's one down by right below the jellyfish, opposite of the monkey head.
They're not gonna. People aren't gonna know that.
How about M31? Can you get that?
Do you have
How
a
about
nice picture of
M33?
M31?
No, because galaxies here don't play nice with me.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? No, actually, no. I think I do.
Do
I
you have a
think I
nice
do.
picture of the Orion Nebula?
Oh yeah.
You do.
Well, there you go.
You
So
just
you can
framed.
talk about that and then say, and by the way, if you had lots of time and a dark sky site and my equipment and everything, here's what it looks like. And people go, whoa.
Yeah, yeah. I've got the picture posted on the IO group. So,
Yeah, from your dark sky site.
yeah, my Bortle 8 sky. My Bortle 8 sky.
Whatever.
You gotta write a book, man.
Mhm.
How to do it in a Bortle 8 sky.
So Mark, what would you pick?
The Perseus double cluster for one.
There you go.
That's
Yeah,
a
that's
nice
good.
one. You can see that in Montclair. So we picked M45. You know what? M37. That's another open cluster. We're doing that. Let's do that.
Can I throw a
Okay.
suggestion out?
Yes.
I have an interest in binaries and these multiple
Mhm.
star systems.
Yep.
Because I think that it's something that most people are not going to expect, that there are so many of them out there. And the fact that you've got binaries that are circling other binaries, and it gets pretty complicated that way.
You want to talk about Castor maybe, and maybe
Yeah.
Mizar and Alcor?
Yeah,
Possibly.
exactly. Yeah. Even
That's
That,
Alberio.
that would be great. And I want to tell a story to Jeff, because I think this was before you were in the club. Some years ago, we were at a little library somewhere west of here in a parking lot. And one mother had 5-year-old twins who were a royal pain. They were running around and shouting and not minding her very well. And it was in the summer, and Alberio was up. So I said to the twins, I'm going to show you a twin star, like your twins, but there's two things that they're not identical twins. They're like fraternal twins, like you two. And so I want you each to pick some way that you can tell they're fraternal twins. So they got excited about that. And I showed them Alberio and made them be quiet and then talked to them individually. And each of them had indeed picked something different. One was that they were two different brightnesses, and the other kid picked that they were two different colors.
Right.
And so did a lot of praising of that. But that was very interesting to that particular family, and
Yeah.
it calmed them down.
Mhm. Got their attention.
Yeah, it did, and that was kind of useful. So yeah, I think we've got a good set of stuff here and good ideas.
So Mary Lou, in the beginning, before, and maybe run this by Kevin too. So if we're going to use Stellarium, should I then instead, in the very beginning, like the first 5 minutes, just put up a couple of slides with the reason why the stars change, like 2 or 3, 4 slides about, stars of the different seasons.
I think it would be good
I
to have
suppose, yeah.
two slides, mostly with here's the belt of stars, here's the sun, and here's the earth going around, and there's some arrows or something like that. You had a couple like that.
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can do one like that, and
Yeah.
then one with a couple of a star chart from the spring and from the winter and the summer, and that's it. See how the sky is very different during that time of year,
Right.
Just
And
that
then-
quick concept, get that out of the way, and then do,
Right.
do
So
what we're gonna do.
You have 5 minutes, then Kevin could have 5 minutes of, here's a more detailed view of the sky, and here's the zodiac. And so one of the things people know is Orion, which isn't quite in the zodiac, but a little bit near one. And there's Taurus, and then let's sweep our way leftwards through the zodiac and name all 13 of them. And then have the people talk about what they would pick for alignment stars and what they would pick for objects of interest, all in January. So now we're just going to go to January and just do that.
Right. Yeah, that's fine. I think that would, I think, cover that. And then we after we do this, we go into the business meeting,
Yes.
and take care of that.
So I think you've done a great job at getting the training going and getting people to think about their individual favorites and that sort of thing. And I think that's an interesting little bit of program. It's very local and fine.
No, this worked out. This is a really good group too. This is what we got here.
Yes. We got a good group.
We got a good group.
And then
Guys,
Kevin, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So I think you're on for for February.
Yeah, for February. Yeah.
The Just Wonderful Space Telescope has gone
Yep.
out, and we got pictures of it and
that's
everything.
wonderful.
Yeah. I hope it continues. I get the secondary mirror unfolded today. So I think the primary mirror comes next, and boy,
Woohoo!
they're doing really good so far, as I've
Woohoo!
heard. So
Don't jinx it.
yeah, really. yeah, really. So so that's exciting.
Very good.
Speaking of which, of course, for the February meeting, we're going to have to change the day, and I guess it seems like we seem to be settling on Tuesday. Seems to be what most people seem to be interested, at least among the officers. I don't know about the membership. I did see a message from Angie saying, could the meeting start earlier than we have in the past? And I mean, because I'm not, if we're doing it virtually, we're not really commuting, I'm not commuting to Newark. It's okay by
That's
me, but I don't know about anybody else, I'm not quite sure. We've always had trouble we've talked about moving the meetings earlier in the past, and we just are always up against the commuting time, when people were, commuting to work and then trying to get to Montclair State and that sort of thing. But if we're doing it virtually, I suppose we could do it earlier, but I just want to, I don't want to lose people,
Right. Well, I think virtual at 7:30 is fine for me.
Yeah,
How about the rest of you?
I think that's okay.
Fine with me. I mean, we could even do 7 as works.
I
for
could
me
do
as well.
easy. Yeah, I could go earlier too.
No, 7 is still dinner time.
Yeah, I think so.
I know, and Jeopardy's on too, so I like to watch.
Jeopardy's on, right? Priorities, man.
Priorities, man.
Amy's doing
Okay.
great. Over 900,000 now.
Great.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing. So I guess we'll plan on that, moving. Maybe we'll use February as a test, kind of say we're going to move the February meeting to Tuesday at 7:30, and if this works out, we'll continue that, for the spring semester anyway. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
So cool.